Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Seemal Fatima with the RMU Surgery Interest Group. I am here with Dr. Syed Ather Enam, Sitara Imtiaz, who is here at RMU for the Essentials of Neuroscience course 2024. Dr. Enam is a world-class neurosurgeon and is currently the chair of neurosurgery at AKU. He is the founder of PASPAN, Pakistan Society for Basic and Applied Neuroscience. PASPAN is the prime organization where the best minds in neuroscience come together. Everyone must look it up. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thank you very much for coming here and taking time out for this workshop.
My pleasure.
How are you doing?
I'm doing perfectly fine.
How has your experience been with the medical students of the Twin Cities over the past 2 days in RMU?
Oh, it's an amazing experience. One can look at you and you can imagine that the way you guys are interactive and brilliant students, all of you guys. It has been a wonderful experience, mashallah.
We all know that you have a very busy schedule. So what drives you to take time out for such activities to a place so far from home?
Well, it's not far from home. This is my home. I'm in Pakistan, right? So Pakistan is my home. But what happens is that in your lifetime, and this is message to all the students also, there's a period you go through training, and there's no one defined time limit. The training goes on, and you keep on getting training for the rest of your life. But then at some point, you start to build up your practice, and then at some point you start to give back, right? And then at some point, that giving back becomes the prominent part of your life, and then that should then become a focus of because this is what gives you the satisfaction. So getting involved in these activities, seeing bright students like all of you guys, it just it gives me the meaning of my life, basically.
That's great. So coming to neuroscience, what was the point in your education where you decided that this was your calling? Was it a singular experience, or did your interest grow gradually?
So the story is different in everybody's life about whoever goes to neurology or neuroscience or in any specialty. I, for instance, had a liking for brain early on when I was in class 6 or 7 or 5 maybe, and I wanted to become a neurosurgeon way back in class 6 or 7. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way. There are people who have been wandering through different specialties and then fit into one specialty, and then suddenly they become a brilliant success. So one should not take this as an example, but in my case that was the story.
So you were always driven by
I was always driven for this thing, right?
Okay. So what are some recent advancements in neuroscience that you find particularly intriguing or surprising?
So if you look at the brain, we talked about there are so many neurons that we can't even count them in our lifetime, and then all the connections that the neurons have, it can be as many as 20,000-30,000 synapses in some of the neurons in the cortex of the brain. So to come to grip with all this how our brain works, it requires a different set of investigations and different set of research. We are not there yet, but then things like artificial intelligence, it's helping us understand, although it sounds a little paradoxical because artificial intelligence is following neuroscience, but then understanding artificial intelligence helps you understand neuroscience. But then in neuroscience there are research is going on all different areas, from the molecular research, how the genes affect you, how the epigenetics affects you, how the neuronal firing affects you, how the network affects the function of the nervous system. So all different levels. So, and in every area there are some innovation that are happening that sort of inspires you. So there's not one answer, but there are multiple.
So how do you see the ongoing neuroscience research in Pakistan? Is it stagnant or is it growing?
So I would say it's growing, but when I say it's growing, it is growing from a very minuscule effort that was going on for 20 years ago. There were some neuroscientists in here who are working on neuroscience topics, but it's growing and it's going to keep on growing, definitely. But then it's not at a level that one can say there is a very well established neuroscience community in Pakistan. Unfortunately, we don't have that at this point.
So how do you see the future of neuroscience in Pakistan? Because you're training the next generation of neuroscientists and neurosurgeons. So how do you see it in like the next 2 decades?
So when you say neuroscience, one has to distinguish between the two different angles to it. One is the clinical neuroscience, and in clinical neuroscience we include neurosurgeons, neurologists, neuroradiologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on. And then there are neuroscientists that do basic neuroscience research. So when I'm talking about neuroscience community and all that thing, I'm talking about the basic neuroscientists. These clinicians that do clinical neuroscience, these are, in a way, they are neuroscientists, but I don't think they're neuroscientists, right? Just because you work with the brain doesn't make you a neuroscientist, right? So they use, like as a neurosurgeon, we use the principle of surgery more than actually a lot of principle of neuroscience itself. But then those things are coming in, and things like fiber tract anatomy, dissection of the brain for resection of brain tumors, what part of the brain is involved in what activity, those are all coming in from the basic neuroscience. But the clinical part of the neuroscience is going well. There's a lot of people who have made their careers in neurosurgery, neurology and things like that, and in neuroradiology also. The basic neuroscience, it's not there yet, it's struggling. But I see a very good future, because as I talk to different people over here, and I've done these courses in different part of the country, the people are getting interested in active basic science research. So I think over time it's going to bring a change. Probably not in my lifetime so much change, but everything is exponential. Exponentially it will keep on growing, inshallah.
So what would be your message to aspiring neurosurgeons and the medical students?
So so that's a subgroup of aspiring neurosurgeons versus medical students, because there are some medical students who are going to go into neurology, some medical students will go into psychiatry, some will go for pulmonology, right? Who knows? So one message that for the medical students as such is that one needs to start to focus at some point, but then look at all the other fields and make a decision that is this what really drives you. And it's a cliche, passion and all that thing, right? But the fact is, yes, the passion does drive you, and it helps you take care of a lot of lows in your life when you are following your passion. So I, at the risk of repeating the cliches again, follow your passion. That's one thing, right? And the same applies whether it's aspiring neurosurgeon. You're going to come across a lot of barriers, and if you have a passion for that, you're going to go through it. You're going to push through it. I remember when I was a resident, I had some of the worst times during my residency. But as I would be walking out of the hospital after a cold night, I would say, Ather, you're going to be a neurosurgeon one day. That drives you, right? So you have to have that kind of a drive. Otherwise, you can't face all those barriers and those challenges. So yeah, that's.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It was an honor for us.
You take very good interviews. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm honored.